ও নদীরে একটি কথা শুধাই শুধু তোমারে, ও নদীরে একটি কথা শুধাই শুধু তোমারে, বলো কোথায় তোমার দেশ, তোমার নেই কি চলার শেষ, ও নদীরে একটি কথা শুধাই শুধু তোমারে, বলো কোথায় তোমার দেশ, তোমার নেই কি চলার শেষ, ও নদীরে।
Shabana acted in my film in Khandar. She used to come from the airport. She used to come to my place first. Didi, could I have a look at your saris? The saris which are torn, which have been overused. So he brought out those saris. I said, I will have these saris. I won't have these studio-made saris. New saris were purchased for her. I said, no, I will have these saris, which has been much used, and I mean, color is gone.
I had been hounding Mrinalda for many, many years and telling him, when are you going to cast me in a film? When are you going to cast me in a film? And of course, he didn't take me seriously because I was working in mainstream cinema at that time and very, very busy. And then finally, I went up to him and I said, I'm going to do a dharna outside your house and you wait and watch till you cast me. I'm not going to leave your life. So he said, I think you're just playing the fool with me. I said, well, offer a film and see. And that's how Khandar came into being.
लगता है दीपूदा लोग आ गए। माँ, माँ दीपूदा लोग।
When you know them, you know Kunal and you know Geeta Di and you know Mrinalda, they're just such warm, lovely, real people that I don't think one can help but be totally real with them. And the fact that Geeta Di is also an actor, I think there is an instant bonding that happens. After all, she was playing my mother, with whom I had a very, very intimate relationship in the film. And actually what had happened is we didn't want to take new sarees and then age them, which is the normal practice. I thought it would be much better if we could actually, if Jamini could actually wear sarees that had been worn over a long period. And so I just raided her cupboard.
कौन सी साड़ी पहनी है तूने?
क्यों?
नीली साड़ी तुझे बहुत अच्छी लगती है।
कौन सी नीली?
अरे वही, वो बेल बूटे वाली मेरी थी ना।
वो तो कब की फट गई माँ।
हाँ, थी भी तो कब की।
ये भी तो नीली है।
कौन सी?
यही जो मैं पहनी हूँ। दीदी ने भेजी थी ना पूजा पे।
अच्छा।
लेकिन बेल बूटे नहीं है।
ओह।
She asked Geeta, my wife, how is it that when I'm to play a Bengali village girl, I have to be like that. But how is it that the petticoat is thin? It was not dressed up that way, the sari, the way the women wear at home. Yes, so this is sin there. It is like that. But when you see someone coming, for instance, Nasiruddin Shah comes, you will do what you have to do, you have to put like this. You have to put the end of the sari like this. And Shabana exactly did like this. Didi, can you do it over again? And she did it. And she also did it.
चामिनी, एक काम करेगी? आज निरंजन को खाने के लिए बुला लेना, जो कुछ है रूखा सूखा।
माँ, मैं तुम पे बोझ हूं ना। किसी तरह छुटकारा पालो तो तुम्हारी जान बचे। क्यों?
पगली,
मुझे विदा करके क्या तुम यहाँ अकेली रहोगी?
क्यों अकेली क्यों रहूंगी?
तो कौन आके इस खंडर में तुम्हारी देखभाल करेगा?
यहाँ नहीं रहूंगी।
यहाँ नहीं रहोगी तो फिर कहाँ जाओगी?
तेरे पास।
दीदी के पास गई हो कभी?
पर तेरे पास रहूंगी। क्यों, रखेगी ना?
माँ, मेरी अच्छी माँ।
Khandar came right on the heels of Mandi, which was a very gregarious, outgoing, over the top part. And suddenly I had to play Jamini, whose core I had to find from within myself. And actually, it came as a surprise to me that I actually have a shy person inside me, which I was not aware of, and which, digging deep into Jamini, I found aspects of my personality that I was completely unfamiliar with. And I consider Khandar as the film in which I've made the least number of mistakes. Because Khandar started off so well between us, there was a huge element of trust that had developed and a bonding that had developed between us, I think, which helped the later performances as well.
ये तो बड़ी मुसीबत हो गई कि ताई जी समझ रही हैं कि निरंजन हम लोगों के साथ आया है।
हाँ।
लेकिन ये बात उनके दिमाग में डाली किसने?
डालेगा कौन? खुद ही।
तुमने उन्हें समझाने की कोशिश नहीं की कि निरंजन नहीं आया?
One of the best things that I felt was that the shooting hours were not very hard, because he used to shoot according to whatever the light he required or his cameraman wanted. So the shooting hours were not strenuous, but there was a lot of attention given to detail, lot of briefing to the actors. So there was a great opportunity of learning from this filmmaker all the aspects of filmmaking on one hand, and the subtle nuances of acting on the other hand. I was rather new at that time in cinema, so I got to learn a lot in terms of how one should be expressing oneself in cinematic terms as an actor, and how to be with your co-actors. And he would make you so comfortable, and would immediately, if you did something nice, would immediately come and pat you on your back. And before that, he would not make it sound heavy to you. He would make it seem so simple and easy for an actor, which I think was a wonderful thing.
ए भाई
जी,
हम क्या जंगल से होकर गुजर रहे हैं?
हाँ, दिखाई नहीं पड़ रहा?
ना।
कुछ तो दिख रहा होगा।
हाँ, कुछ तो दिखाई पड़ रहा है। अंधेरा दिखाई पड़ रहा है।
He made me feel so comfortable, with so much ease. Though I was sharing the screen with other legendary performers like Nasiruddin Shah, like Shabana Azmi, Pankaj Kapoor, Sirla Majumdar. Everything was so calm and quiet and cool.
सुबह तक जिंदा रहेंगे यार? तुम्हारा ये फोटोग्राफर्स पैराडाइज देखने के लिए?
यार मुझे पहले पता होता ना तो मैं यहाँ कभी नहीं आता। अब तो मैं इस खटिया के नीचे सोऊंगा।
अरे नहीं यार, वहां सोने की क्या जरूरत? उधर उस कमरे में सो जाओ, वहां तो कोई सपोर्ट भी नहीं है।
Are you sure?
हाँ बिल्कुल, आओ देख लो।
जरा चेक कर, चलो।
I think Dada must have saved up this story from somewhere, because he made it somewhat late in his career, rather than as a young man, whenever he started. And I think the story affected him deeply. It affected me very deeply, because In the place I come from, which is in UP, I had an aunt, one of my mother's sisters, who lived this kind of life, in fact, who was never married by her parents because they wanted somebody to serve her through their life till their death. And when they died, she was completely lost. I think it's a very, very tragic life. And this lady, this aunt, was in my head when I was listening to the story, and it's my unconscious tribute to her.
Well, they are gems of actors, there. And they have their own way of doing things. Body language, the speaking, everything is very much different. Ompuri, Shabana, Nasir, and then this Pankaj Kapoor, then Anu Kapoor, all of them are very good actors. And they had the dedication, all of them had plenty of dedication.
It's just two people who enjoy being together, I suppose. That's because I love being in Mrinal Da's company. I love listening to him. And I found him to be a very good listener too, surprisingly. Though he often doesn't let you get a word in. But when he listens intently. That's what I found.
Well, I do think that people change over the years, and they should. But Mrinal Da, I think, is always invested in good actors, and then let good actors do the work for better part of the time. He'd make sure that he created an atmosphere of creativity on the sets. So everybody, his DOP, his actors, his sound, all of them would get tuned to his own drama.
When I open the Kandahar file, I find this is a film which got the largest number of awards in foreign countries.
Was it Kandahar then, in a sense, also, and its global recognition, that led you on to an even more ambitious, again a global project in every sense of the term, Genesis? So, what was you thinking when you were making Genesis, and what was the thrust? It was a real break from all that you had done till then.
That's true. And it was an allegory.
Right.
It is a story conceived in a different way, absolutely different way.
I found it not an easy part to do because there were no role models for it. There was no such person that I had seen. So I had to largely draw from my imagination, obviously, what the dialogue said about the person, and from the environment, from those ruins around me.
ये शमशान है।
तुम मरने दो मुझे। क्यों मेरे पीछे लगे हो? क्यों चाहिए तुम्हें?
जेनेसिस आप देखेंगे जो लोकेशंस वो चुना करते थे, मतलब मुझे याद है कि जो राजस्थान में एक पुराना गांव है जहाँ पे एक रात में वो गाँव खाली हो गया था, उसको उन्होंने जब सिलेक्ट किया था, तो जब भी मैं उस विलेज में वापस जाता हूँ आज के तारीख में भी, तो नीतीश दा के थ्रू सुनी हुई जितने भी बातें हैं उस विलेज पे, तो मृणाल दा घूमते हुए दिखाई देते।
Our cameraman was French. Our recordist was Belgian, and he was a perfect recordist. When water is poured into a pitcher, the sound recordist said, I can hear the hissing. I said, look, there could be some snake somewhere. And my editor said, no, I don't think it is there. Where you got the picture from? He brought the picture the day before, and that was brought in. The water was poured, and the sound of the water trickling down in the pores of the new pitcher, that made the sound. One thing here, another thing there. He was like doing like this. Two mics, and there was another mic, and there were four more mics somewhere else. It was like that, and marvelous.
We have very fond memories of it. We shot in Jaisalmer. We lived in Jaisalmer, and from Jaisalmer it was about 30 kilometers in the desert, kind of a no man's land. And that was the concept of the film, that these two people decided to live away from civilization.
ये तो कुछ बोल ही नहीं रहे। बोल नहीं रहे? अभी बोलेंगे, ये देख। बोलना तो पड़ेगा महाराज।
Jaisalmer, in the desert, he said you have to be on a camel. I said, oh, camel, and you have to come riding on it, etc. You have 3 days to learn the camel. Before that, I will not shoot you. And in the evening, he said, have you done it? I said, I think I can. He said, no managing, you have to get it. So I worked again on second day. Third day, I got the grip of it because little, if you know horse riding and there are little signals, little different. And fourth day, I started galloping. And I said, no, I'm going to location on there. They said, no, it is very far, we'll bring it with you. And from the main road to the location, the village, which has now become, after Mrinal Sen discovered that abandoned village for the location of Genesis, is today a heritage village for tourists. Thousands of tourists go to that village now, Karkava. And I got on the camel and started galloping to the location. And he just looked at it, who is this guy? I said, it's me. I said, tomorrow shooting.
कहाँ हो भाई? घर पे हो क्या?
And there was a 200 feet high rostrum on his camera was there. Cameraman was up there. Manalda had to say from the ground, action. So camera will be on, and there was very little footage left. I said, roll camera! Camera roll and blast came. And we got it. Once we got it, what happened was, these stones, huge stones came flying up. Huge explosion. And everybody said, we got it, and there was a celebration. But I had seen one bomb igniting and it didn't explode. It was a phosphorus bomb. And it was there, and we were walking. And we came back, and Manalda is behind with his cameraman sound recorders. I am ahead with Nitish talking, that bomb is not wet. And suddenly, it came straight on. I was saved, Nitish was saved. Manalda on his face here on his dhoti, everywhere. Cameraman everywhere. And it was panic. What do? We don't know what is to be done. It is burning. They are in agony, pain, screaming. And I rushed to the commandant. He had gone. I phoned him and said, this has happened. He said, get copper sulfate water, put it there and bring them to hospital. But at that time, when all recognitions camera, they were screaming. Mrinalda was quiet. I don't know what pain he must have gone through. He didn't ever complain. He had this big patch. We still see that there's a mark here on it. Because phosphorus bomb, it sticks to you.
विश्वास नहीं होता। ये भगवान की मेहरबानी थी कि वो औरत यहाँ आई। उसने तो तुम लोगों को पूरी तरह बदल दिया। तुम भी तो उसे रानी की तरह रखते हो। क्यों? ठीक कहा ना मैंने? और अब उस रानी के लिए ये झूला। बैठ जाओ इस पे।
This film, Genesis, promised to be a classic of all time in my eyes. That's how I foresaw it. I felt let down when we were shooting it. I might as well say this now, Dada. You have accepted the fact that I called the film crap in an interview, and you always show that interview to everybody, even to my son. So let me explain why. I had imagined the film, that every shot in that film would be an allegory. The film was an allegorical story. That didn't turn out to be the case, and I felt that that Dada, without the setting he was accustomed to, the middle-class Bengali home where people light cigarettes and sip cups of tea non-stop, he was out of his depth, I really felt. I cannot pass judgment on the movie because I haven't seen it. I don't know why. Dada, please tell us why. Are you embarrassed of it? That's why you're not showing it?
Hey! ये ले।
We'll talk a little bit about your actors, Mrinal Babu, and maybe we start with the three actors who made their debut in your films: Mithun Chakraborty, Ranjit Mollik, and a wonderful theatre actor Arun Mukherjee.
And also Suhasini Bole. My first film, which was the biggest of all big disasters, Radhapur, there were stars. All of them were stars.
Established big stars.
Established stars. I thought that I should start with the freshers. And Ranjit Mollik was there to start with.
Mrinal Babu had to work a lot for me because I was absolutely novice. I didn't know anything. I had no idea about anything. There was a sequence in the film that I caught one of the pickpocket and took him to the police station. Mrinal Sen told me that all that you are in a hurry because you have to attend one interview. That is. And what are the questions? What is the dialogues? Well, the dialogues, the questions he will ask you, accordingly you will have to answer. Yes, I was astonished because he was seriously he was telling me there is no dialogue written.
আপনার নাম কি ভাই? আমার নাম রঞ্জিত মল্লিক। রঞ্জিত মল্লিক, বাবার নাম? সোমনাথ। উনি মারা গেছেন। লেট সোমনাথ মল্লিক। থাকেন কোথায়? থাকি হলো ভবানীপুর বলবেন না? ঠিকানাটা বলুন। 47 আপনার ওই মহেশ চৌধুরী লেন। মহেশ চৌধুরী লেন, ক্যালকাটা।
The way he kind of suddenly get into this, I mean, we can feel the presence of the filmmaker and the camera and the everything inside the story. That's quite wonderful. Interview, I mean, definitely the sequence inside the tram where he was going to, I mean, I think he's going to collect his suit or something, and suddenly he was talking to camera. And we can see K.K. Mahajan was standing with the camera inside, which is, I mean, at that point of time, was a big surprise in cinema, that the way he suddenly changed the narrative into a very almost like a critical zone.
Finally, when it was shown, the film in Bombay, it was shown to Shantaram. He said, Mrinal, I must say it's a great film to me. And Ranjit Mollik got a big prize in Karlovy Vary as an actor.
আগে হ্যাঁ, এই বাস মানে ইট ওয়াজ রানিং টুয়ার্ডস যোগরুর বাজার। যোগরুর বাজারের দিকে যাচ্ছিল, বুঝেছেন? একটা আচ্ছা কি আশ্চর্য বলুন তো, আপনারা লাইনটা একটু ছাড়ুন না। বলছি একটা দরকারি কথা হচ্ছে, তা এখনো চালাচ্ছেন। এটা শেষ হয়ে যাবে এক্ষুনি, তারপরে বলবেন। হ্যাঁ, এই ধরুন এই সোয়েটার মতন এইরকম হবে। আচ্ছা আপনারা ভদ্রতা শিক্ষাটা কিছু জানেন না নাকি? আনকালচারের মতন এইরকম লাইনে কথা বলছেন। বলছি একটা দরকারি কথা হচ্ছে, শুনতে পাচ্ছেন না নাকি?
When you take on Arun Mukherjee, you take him from what you had seen in theatre.
But when he met Jagannath and I met Parashuram, Parashuram was, more or less something like Jagannath. So I thought that Arun Mukherjee could do the proper use of the role.
I got this opportunity to work under a director like Mrinal Sen, and my first picture I got national award. I told Mrinalda, when Mrinalda rang me, told me that you have got the national award, I mean, it's a fluke. It's a fluke.
কানে কথা যাচ্ছে না, না? উঠে এদিকে। হাঁটতে জানো না? আমার ওয়ালেটটা কোথায়? কি ওয়ালেট? মানি ব্যাগ? আমার টাকার ব্যাগ কোথায় রেখেছিস? বল বল, কোথায় রেখেছিস? চুরি করে নেকা সাজা হচ্ছে না? না না না, আমি চুরি করিনি। চুরি করনি? চুরি করন? চোর! বেরিয়ে যা! বেরো! 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 ছোট লোকে।
এই দাদা, চেঁচাচ্ছিস কেন? এই নে তো ওয়ালেট। It was right on your table.
কি হচ্ছে? তুই আমার চাকর? শালা চাকর!
One fine morning, he called me up and said, "Are you prepared to act in my film?" I said, "Which film and which role? I don't know. But since you were requesting me to act in your film, I blindly give my consent. It's my pride, that you have called me, asked me to act in your film." So he said, then I came to know that it is Parashuram.
তাড়াতাড়ি পা চালিয়ে আয়। হেউ পা ছেড়ে উঠিস নি রে, মরণ তো খেয়ে যাবি। যতক্ষণ পা ছুঁয়ে বসে আছিস ততক্ষণ নারায়ণ। উঠিছিস কি ভিখিরি? আমি ভিখিরি? আমি তোর পেছনে রে আম্মু।
Both Anjan and Mamata, they knew how to get into the roles, the kind of behaving in the right manner.
I knew nothing about cinema. He brought me into cinema. I always wanted to be a part of cinema, but I didn't go to film school. My father didn't want me to join the cinema, so I didn't know what to do. So I was hanging around doing theatre and things like that. And he found me, and he introduced me suddenly to this big world of films which I haven't actually seen, which is European, which is world cinema. And I worked with him, and I was immediately flown off to Venice, and I saw the world suddenly. I never saw the world before that. I mean, I've traveled around in the country, but to just go to Venice, to Cannes, to Paris, to Germany, to go suddenly the world opens up, and I'm traveling to all over the world, being a part of great festivals, meeting the best of directors, interacting with the best of actors. Suddenly, this whole thing happened at a very young age because of this man, and he always treated me as an equal.
And Anjan is very intelligent, very sensitive, and even when he's making films, he took 2 months. He took 2 months leave from cinema, and started play Galileo once again, and I liked it very much the way he did it. And you saw it?
Yes,
I saw it thrice, and I liked it very much. So he was a very different man than what he was initially.
I was drifting, and then suddenly this man walks into my life and says that you can act, and I started working. And as I progressed, as I did music, as I started directing, as I started acting with other people, he was constantly there with me, and he was like a cross check, and I kept going back to him, whether I was working with him or not, I kept going back to him. When I was singing, I went back to him. When I was making a movie, I went back to him. When I was directing, I went back to him. So I was constantly going back to him.
আমাদের সকলেরই রানীমা জুতোটা
Antareen in 1993 was a very different kind of film from the kind of films that you were doing at that point of time. And you bring in Dimple Kapadia for that, who had been already identified with Bobby and those images. So how did you choose these two actors for Antareen and the strange relationship that you create between the two, Dimple and Anjan?
Anjan came to his friend's house. The friend went outside, so left it for Anjan. And it was a big house, but dilapidated. And Anjan was there. He said he was looking for stories and he will write stories there. The woman on the other side of the camera, the telephone. She comes from a big family and she's also living alone. She's a prisoner of circumstances. Anjan is also a prisoner of circumstances in a way that he has to write all alone. And she's there all alone with a maid servant. I asked her not to do any makeup and she mustn't put on weight. And she would be talking to herself. And her job is to call somebody in the middle of the night.
কটা বাজে?
দেখটা দাঁড়ান দাঁড়ান ঘড়িটা বন্ধ হয়ে গেছে।
আমি বলে দিচ্ছি। এদের ঘড়িতে তো বলছে 3:10। বলুন, কি এমন দরকারি কাজ পড়লো যে রাত দুপুরে?
কি বলবো, ঘুম আসছে না।
But they met at the end. She had to get down with a big suitcase and Anjan was standing there.
সরি, আমি ঠিক আপনাকে দেখতে পাইনি। আসুন। কি হলো? নামুন, ট্রেন কিন্তু ছেড়ে দেবে।
She realized who he was.
আমাকে দিন।
He knew the voice.
কিছু
He heard the voice so many times on the telephone. And Anjan also felt very disturbed. He walked a few steps and looked back again. And then walked away. That was the end of it. So this is how things were. Anjan also looking for a story. She was also talking about things, about Khudita Pashan. Because I thought that a bit from Khudita Pashan will be very important. To warn my viewers, I am no somnambulist. I wake up in the middle of the nights and walk in a strange world. My adventures, as I see through a series of nocturnal sessions between man and the woman on telephone, speak of life and love, of passion and pain, of brutality, of infinite splendor and internal confinement.
In two films, you bring in Simi and Dimple, who are already very much there in the Bombay cinema screen and they have their own images. And you bring them also in contact with two typical Bengali actors of the kind of actors that you have been using, Dhritiman in one and Anjan in the other. So how did you think of this chemistry?
Dhitiman was in the students' movement. He was not a communist, and I don't require a communist. I need someone who is involved in political movement. So that was how he came. There was a freeze on Dhitiman, and the camera started following, started moving forward, and he was like that. And the background, there was sound of drum, dum, 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 dum. The percussions were there. And it was like that. That's how the film ended.
Particularly at that stage, Mrinal was his political opinions, number one. Number two, the experiments he was doing with form, which in a sense started with interview, Calcutta 71, chorus, Padatik. So these were the two things that were very important to him. As a result of which, he was improvising a lot. In the case of Padatik, I remember that, if I'm not mistaken, even 5 days before shooting was meant to end, nobody, including Mrinal, knew how the film was going to end. So that was the wonderful thing of, besides being an older friend, that was the wonderful thing about working with Mrinal, that there was a lot of collaboration. People that he trusted, giving suggestions. So there was a lot of evolution, even as the film was being shot.
And then about Simi, she called me from Bombay, said, I will be acting in your film. And so let me do it. I said, yes. But I won't give you money as much as you get from there. Said, I will give you just 5,000 rupees, not more than that. I said, yes, that is okay for me. Bijan Babu and Dhitiman, Sundar, both of them asked me how to do it. I said, I tell you a story. Then I started talking about my first cameraman, Polda, Shailaja Chatterjee. He was in jail. And when he was 15-year-old, he joined the terrorist party. And he left the house. And he stayed there for 3 years. And then he was arrested with others. And then they were mercilessly, all of them were mercilessly beaten. Polda told me this story. And I told the same story to them. So the point is to inculcate in them the way they have to act.
Akal, he was picking up from an unpublished short story, which was written by a person who was known to him. And the other interesting thing is that I told Mrinal that look, I have never asked anyone for a role in my life. When people have cast me, they've cast me, but I've never asked anyone for a role. But this role of the director, I must do. I have to do this.
আরে ছবি দেখবে দেখবেন দেখুন
দেখি দেখি আরে এ তো বুদ্ধদেব না
মনে হচ্ছে গান্ধার স্কাল্পচার সেকেন্ড সেঞ্চুরি স্টার্ভিং বুদ্ধা
ইস না খেয়ে খেয়ে এই অবস্থা
তাহলে বুঝাছো পেটে দানা পানি না পড়লে ভগবানও উপকার
I can tell you at least of 2 scenes between Smita and me for which no dialogue had been written, and we knew what the shot of the scene was about, and we improvised our own dialogue, actually after the camera started rolling. So that was the wonderful thing about working with him.
বলো কোন পিরিয়ড বলো কোন পিরিয়ডের ছবি এটা বলো
বলো 1943 হবে ইয়া 43 ছবি দেখে আমি বলবো ও লাইনে আমি নেই আকাশ ওই 1943 বলবো 1959
আরে
ও জানতো আমি কি বলেছিলাম
তাই বলো
I always wanted to work with him, and he would often tell me that, "Hey, amra ekshonge kaj korbo," which never really was happening. And then one day he called me and told me about a film that he was working on. Then a few days later he called me again and said, "You know what? I have to scrap this film." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, nobody wants to fund it because it's set in a Muslim context." And I told him, I said, "Mrinalda, you are the last person who should cow down to such pressures. You know, he's completely secular, liberal, today's person." So I said that, you know, we'll do whatever we have to, you know, pay me peanuts, pay me nothing, but we have to do this film. And he said, yes, I mean, we are going to take up this challenge. And I don't know, somehow he managed to get the funds for it. And there we were in Turkey, in a lovely little guest house just across Bangladesh. There was a lovely Chamoti river flowing in between. And we had, you know, one of my most sort of, you know, wonderful memories of a shoot.
In fact, I remember this lovely thing. He says, I can make film only in this budget. If you give me too much budget, I don't know what to do with it.
Then one day he called me up and asked that whether I'll do the film. Well, of course, Mrinalda, there's no question about it. And he also said that, Dakho, I won't be able to pay you much. Huh? So I said that if you don't pay me any money also, then I'll do the film. That's how the whole thing started.
I had a little gesture that I'm going to touch Nandita's cheek, you know. So since I was playing a role of a farmer, so I was cautious that it should not be a very sophisticated gesture. So while Obhik was preparing for the lights and Nandita was sitting just beside me, I was unknowingly, you know, I was practicing, I was touching her cheek so that it doesn't look very sophisticated. The gesture doesn't look very sophisticated. I was practicing basically. So Mrinalji too saw that. He came towards me and he said, haven't you ever touched a lady? Why you are practicing so much? So that was so embarrassing. But these are the few things, little things, you know, he maintained this kind of an atmosphere in the floor so that everything becomes so easy for the actors.
একটা ইন্টারেস্টিং ব্যাপার হয়েছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমি একটা মিথ্যে কথা বলেছিলাম ওনাকে, ছবিতে রোলটা যাতে হাতছাড়া না হয়ে যায়। উনি সব দেখে বললেন, তুই বাইক চালাতে পারিস নিশ্চয়ই? আমি ইনস্ট্যান্টলি বলেছিলাম হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু আমি বাইক চালাতে পারতাম না। এবং তারপরে যে স্ক্রিপ্ট রিডিংটা হলো তাতে আমি বুঝলাম যে মোটামুটি শুধু যে বাইক চালাবো তা নয়, একটা হেভি বাইক, এবং তাতে একটা বাচ্চা একবার চড়বে আমার সামনে, এবং তার সঙ্গে রিগে ক্যামেরা পর্যন্ত লাগানো থাকবে। এইটা স্ক্রিপ্টটা শুনতে শুনতে মোটামুটি কানটান লাল হতে আরম্ভ করেছে আমার, যে এখনও কি পায়ে পড়ে বলে দেবো যে যেটা আমি পারি না, না এটা বলা যাবে না, এই স্কোপ আর পাবো না। 3 বার পড়ে 2 বার ছেঁচড়ে মানে মোটামুটি বাইকটা রপ্ত করে, ফার্স্ট শটটাই ছিল যে একদম টাকির ওই একটা ওয়াইন্ডিং এরম করে বাইক নিয়ে এসে ওপর দিয়ে উঠে যাবে, আলের ওপর দিয়ে বাইক। শটটা দেওয়ার পরে যখন বাইকের শটগুলো হয়ে যায়, আমি জেঠুকে বলেছিলাম যে আমি না তোমাকে একটা মিথ্যে কথা বলেছিলাম। কি? আমি বাইক চালাতে পারতাম না। দিব্যি তো চালালি। হ্যাঁ, তারপরে শিখেছি। ব্যাস, তাহলে আবার কি? ঠিক আছে, ফাটাফাটি হয়েছে শট, চলো।
Mrinal Babu, was K.K. Mahajan working with you for the first time in Huvanshom.
Now, coming to it, my technical crew, barring the first film, which was a disaster, the next film and the film for quite few films following that were all photographed by Shailaja Chatterjee. We used to call him Polda. He was the oldest in the whole group, in our group. And he was groomed in new theatres. And he was a very good cameraman. He did Vaishasravan. And Vaishasravan was a good photography. And he did also Akash Kusum. Akash Kusum also good photography. But he was very much, you know, he couldn't move without a tripod. He's always with that. And he was always with me. But then when I could see that the wind was shifting, I have to build my own aesthetics. I have to run away from the conventions, beg the conventions, and building new conventions. And I would need someone who will not need any tripod, who with the camera, he and his camera, and that's all. So when I went to Pune Film Institute, I saw a film by Kumar Sahni, and it was all in train. Who did it? I said, it was done by my cameraman friend. He's also in the cinematography class. What's his name? K.K. Mahajan. And I could see that he is the person for me. In Bhuvansham, he was there. And he was always, mostly he was with the camera. Handheld operation.
मैं पुराने ढंग का आदमी हूँ. ड्यूटी फर्स्ट, सेल्फ लास्ट, यही मेरा मोटो है. अच्छी तरह ड्यूटी कीजिए, मैं खुश रहूंगा. और अगर काम से जी चुराया या कोई गड़बड़ की, तो समझ लीजिए आप लोगों की खैर नहीं. झुक झुक कर वो सलामियां दागने से कोई फायदा ना होगा. यहाँ वो टिकट कलेक्टर था, जादव पटेल. ए जादव भाई, कैसा भीगी बिल्ली की तरह दुबका हुआ है. पैसे बनाने के तरीके खूब जानता है, घूस लेने में उस्ताद. घबरा मत बच्चों, तुम्हारी रिपोर्ट तैयार हो गई है.
That was when I thought that we have to go mad, and I could do it with cameraman like Mahajan. So he was there. He was with me all the time. But the moment he had his camera in hand, he forgot everything. And then immediately after shooting, I said, enough. You had it enough. I won't allow you to take any further shot because you will be making mistakes. He didn't make any mistake whatsoever. And whenever he uses the camera, it's marvelous. Fish market is very important in some of my films. And I didn't work in the same fish market. I asked Mahajan to follow me. I asked my actor, Ranjit Malik, to follow me, or any other actor to follow me. Whatever I do, I went to the fish market. I kneel down to look at a fish. And then Mahajan watches everything. And then after a few minutes, when people came to know about it, so we left this bazaar. We went to another bazaar. And Mahajan was there with the camera, wrapped in black shawl. This is a tiny book, my latest. It was written 2 months back. And it is dedicated to my cameraman, who worked with me for 20 years. It is in memory of K.K. Mahajan, my cameraman, 1969 to 89, who died of cancer. When he looked through my camera for the first time, and that was his first feature film with me, I asked him to remember the quote from Niels Bohr, the iconic physicist. He said, confidence comes from not only being always right, but also from not fearing to be wrong. Cake is dead, I'm still alive, but it doesn't make any difference. So Mahajan knew that he would be making mistakes, so he didn't forget it. And that is how he could get the right thing done.
Once a new film was released, one of your films, you would hang around at the end of almost every screening for the first few days, and even later sometimes, and take in direct feedbacks from the audience's immediate reactions. And sometimes for the audience in those days, it would be quite a surprise suddenly to identify you there, standing. So it was fun and shock and surprise for them, and they would often come up to you and share their feelings with you.
I know most of my films are popular failures at the box office, but neither here nor there. And all of us, the filmmakers, that we are all in the commercial setup, in the sense that when we feel that the film will be liked by many people, we are very happy. But the moment the film is liked by many people, it becomes a commercially viable proposition. My films are not commercially viable proposition, for the simple reason that they don't, I cannot communicate to all classes of people. So that is why I wanted to know how do they react. I remember once, there are plenty of street shots which I was taking from 1967 onward. And this film was made in 1972, Calcutta 71. And then a lot of shots were used. I don't know how I am going to use them, but I used them in any way. In many of my films, even in some of my later films. In Metro, I was there, standing there. A lot of people came. And it ran for 12 weeks. Only the last show was not full, for the simple reason that it was a Naxalite period. So at 9 o'clock, people didn't go. But at 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock show, all the houses were packed. For 12 weeks, it was like that. And someone came and shook my hands. And I could see that I'm shaking, I'm trembling. And I went through such a process. So I know what is that. A woman came and said, I lost my son in one of the fights. And I came only to see my son there. Then two young boys came forward. I said, when did you take it? When did you make the film? I said, in 1971. In September 1971, I started making the film. The other boy, he was also there. He said, it is a lie. It's a lie you are saying. I said, how could you say it? I made the film, and I started it in 71. No, it's a lie. I won't talk to you. The other boy, he wanted to pacify him. Your friend was killed by the police. I said, yes, he was killed by the police. I didn't know who was that. But I saw one person standing on the light stand, and making a speech, fiery speech. Maybe he was the boy who was killed.
Kolkata Ekattor, there are some scenes in Kolkata Ekattor which have stayed with me. You know, the woman these rice sellers in the train, and she comes down and it is darkening and she starts calling out, Nimai, Nimai, and it's almost, it has resonances of Bishnupriya looking for Nimai, you know. So I thought, without ever underlining that, I don't even know whether he meant that, but I think in a film, what the audience, and I as a member of the audience, gets from the film is as important as what the director intends. You know, that is very much part of the film. For me, it was like a mother, like Bishnupriya looking for Nimai. And the way the camera was moving, the way she was calling, it kind of, she was looking all around for her son, for her missing son. And this call, Nimai, that has stayed with me even now.
গৌরাঙ্গ চন্দ্র দাস
আমার ছেলে
বয়স
বছর 15 হবে
হেড অফ দ্য ফ্যামিলি
আমার বড় ছেলে
পেশা কলকাতায় বেআইনি চাল পাচার
চাল বেচে আমাদের সংসার চলে বাবা
স্মাগলার
একটা জিনিস এই চরিত্রে ঢোকার কথা ওনার কাছ থেকেই শিক্ষা উনি কখনো আমার নাম ধরে রাখতেন না মাধবী বা মাধুরী কোনো কিছুই না উনি যে চরিত্রটা আমার ছিল সেই চরিত্রটার নাম ছিল মালতী উনি সবসময় ডাকতেন মালতী বলে কেন ডাকতেন আজকে বুঝতে পারি সেদিন বুঝতে পারিনি এই জন্যই ডাকতেন যে আমি যেন সবসময় মালতীর মধ্যেই বিচরণ করি কলকাতা 71-এ বললো যে শোনো মা, আমি একটা ঝগড়া করতে হবে, আর সেটা বস্তি বাড়ির ঝগড়া। তো ফট করে তো ঝগড়া করা যায় না, একটা ইস্যু নিয়ে ঝগড়া করতে হবে।
এবার আমি বলি মা, বলি না না বলি না না বলো বলো, সেই প্রথম দিন কেরানি বাগানের বাড়িতে কি আমাকে পৌঁছে দিয়ে এসেছিল এই বিনোদ বাড়ির সঙ্গে রাত দিন ঘুষঘুষ ফুসফুস পরামর্শ করা কে কে করতো? হরিশ যোগিনের কাছে এই মেঘ বাড়িটাতে কে পাঠায় মিনুকে? ওই বুড়ো ধেরে লোকগুলোর কাছে হোটেলে পাউরুটি চুরি করতে। তুমি বলনি হারুকে? তোমার পেটের ছেলে মুটু সেখানে এ বাড়িতে আসা ছেড়ে দিয়েছে। বলো বলো, জবাব দাও। মা, তুমি মা।
Calcutta, that city, the city in Mrinal's hands comes alive. You see a kind of what the essence of the city of Calcutta actually is. And you see that constantly when he is shooting in Calcutta, although his landscapes have changed. Because he made not only films in Bengali, he's made films in Hindi and Telugu even. So it's a very, he has a very large range where he's operated in as a filmmaker.
I was interested in the sound effects more than the instrumental music. He was also interested in sound effects. I liked it very much. So I asked Karan to do it. And he was doing like this. He was working with me in the studios, and he saw a corrugated tin, and he took out a bunch of keys and dropped it from top, and it made sound. So I said, this is very good, but you have to distort it. The sound has to be distorted. I said, yes, that's right. That is what I want. And so Subrata Mitra also came there. Subrata Mitra, even though he's a cameraman and his business is to do photography, he also was interested in sound recording. And he brought his 3 sound recording machines. And he started doing all this, how to distort the sound. Karant also loved it. And in my Ekdin Pratidin, he had only 5 minutes of music, composed music, and the rest of it was just effects.
The music came in such wonderful relationship with the silences.
That was it. That was Chandabhaskar. And for the simple reason that Chandabhaskar was also trained in Film Institute, and he was the teacher there. And I watched him. I thought that he would be the right person for me. Genesis was photographed by Carlo Verinian, a French.
This
music was done by Ravi Shankar. That was in Paris.
And after the film was done completely.
He saw the film. The rough cut, and he had it with him. And he was preparing music, and everything was done in Paris with 5-6 musicians.
I also remember Kunal and his friends, and a very bright batch of friends like Shomo the physicist and others, they were always around you, and you also had this opportunity of taking in their ideas, responding to their feelings about things, and a very lively interaction I could see happening between you and your son and his friends.
I remember one day when he was 5-year-old, we were sitting in a park, and the sky was clouded, and there was
a lightning flash.
Lightning flash. It covered the whole of the western horizon. And my son looked at it and said, look, it is like 70mm screen. Interestingly, my son and I, we saw a film, this 70mm film, only a week back. That is why I said, look, it is like 70mm film. But my grandfather, in a similar situation, would have said, it is like Garuda taking to wings. Or a Muslim grandfather, at the age of 5, would have said, it is like Jibril taking to wings. So it is like that. So it is the communication which matters. So I come to the communication. How do you communicate? Whom are you communicating to? And how are you communicating? These are the things which helps. So this is what has been happening.
একটা গলি দিয়ে ছুটে চলে যায় একটা ছেলে, একটা বুলেটের শব্দ রাত্রিরে অদূরে কোথাও, একটা হারমোনিয়াম বেজে ওঠে সাত সকালে, কেউ গলা ছাদে, কেউ গলা সাদে, কারো ছাদে বসে কোন পাড়ায়, টুকরো টুকরো ছবি আমার গোটা পৃথিবী, তুমি আমার বড়ই আমার সিনেমা, সিনেমা না ছুঁয়েও ছুঁতে পারা, হাতটা না ধরেও হাতটা ধরা,